Welcome back. Well, today's book is a really old book. It was published in 1961 and has not been reprinted since. And it's the retelling of an Indian folk tale about a lion king and a number of animals in his court. And it's not a lion king like the Disney Lion King, all cute and cuddly. This is a lion who acts like a real lion. And the Lion King and some of the animals in his court are going to learn some very interesting lessons. Let's read. The King's Choice, a folk tale from India. Retold by K. Shiv Kumar, illustrated by Yoko Mitsuhashi. I couldn't find anything about K. Shiv Kumar online, except that he's listed as the author of a number of Indian folk tales in English. But I suspect this is a pseudonym for Shiv K. Kumar, an Indian English language poet, novelist, short story writer, playwright, translator, and critic. He was born in 1921 in Lahore, which is now in Pakistan, but back then was part of India. And there he received his school and college education. He obtained his doctorate in English literature from the University of Cambridge and taught in both Indian and various British, American, European, and Australian universities. Yoko Mitsuhashi was born in Tokyo, Japan in 1936, where she studied art and design at the Women's College of Fine Arts. In 1962, she moved to New York City and found work as a freelance children's book illustrator and graphic designer, working for companies including Scholastic, New York Magazine, McCall's, Good Housekeeping, and Doubleday. The King's Choice. There once was a lion who was king of the forest. He was big and strong. He was both handsome and fierce. All the other animals in the forest called him king and brought him gifts from every corner of the land. But the more the lion had, the more he wanted. A king must have a court, he said to himself one day. The lion called a fox to his side. "You are known to be a wise and clever creature, Fox," said the lion. "I want you to be my advisor." "Thank you, Your Majesty," said the fox, bowing low. The lion next called a leopard to his side. "You are known to be watchful and swift of foot, leopard. I want you to be my bodyguard," said the lion. "Thank you, Your Majesty," said the leopard, bowing low. The lion then called a vulture to his side. "You are a bird, vulture, and can fly high," the lion said. "You will be my messenger." "Thank you, Your Majesty," said the vulture, bowing low. The fox, the vulture, and the leopard took an oath of loyalty to the king. The king promised to meet them as friends and to give them food and protection. For some time, all went well in the Lion King's court. The three courtiers never opposed the king. His wishes were law. Whenever he roared, they came running. Whenever he took a walk, they meekly followed behind him. When the Lion King went hunting, they found the animals for him to kill. And after he had had his meal, he left the remains for them. So they always had enough to eat. One day the vulture came back from a flight. "Your Majesty, have you ever tasted camel?" he asked. "I ate a camel in the desert once, and it is very nice." The lion had never seen a camel, but he liked the idea of trying camel's meat. "Oh, but where can we get a camel?" he asked. "There is a desert some miles away," said the vulture. "I have just been flying over it, and I saw a lone camel. It looked big and fat." The lion looked at his other advisors for their opinion. Now, the fox and the leopard had never seen a camel either, but they did not want the vulture to seem wiser than they, so they said it was a good idea if the vulture would fly ahead and show them the way. So the vulture's idea was approved, and the next morning the lion and his court started off on the camel hunt. They reached the edge of the desert easily, but after they had left the shelter of the forest, the day became very hot. The sun shone down with fire-hot rays. The vulture flew high up in the cooler air. "Hurry along," he called. "The camel is not far off." But the lion could not hurry anymore. The hot sand had burned his paws. "Stop!" he shouted to the others. "I can walk no farther. Let us go back to the forest. I do not care to try camel meat." The Lion King's advisors were frightened. The forest was far behind them. They did not know how to get the lion back home. The leopard wanted to run away. The vulture wanted to watch and wait and eat the lion later on. Uh-oh. But the clever fox thought of a plan. Off into the desert he ran, saying, "I will soon bring help." After running for some time, the fox found the camel. The camel was indeed surprised to see a fox there in the desert. "Hurry up, friend camel," said the fox. "Our king wants you at once." "Your king?" said the camel. "Who is he? I do not know any king. I only know my master, for whom I carry goods across the desert." "Our king the lion has killed your master," said the fox. "Now you are free, and the lion has invited you to live at his court. Come along." Ooh, I think the fox has something sneaky in mind, don't you? So the camel followed the fox. When the fox and the camel reached the lion's camp, the vulture and the leopard were surprised. The lion looked pleased in spite of his burned paws. The camel was presented to the king and agreed to serve the lion in return for a home at his court. "Get on the camel's back, your majesty," said the fox. "We will return home." The lion at once jumped on the camel's back. His courtiers, the fox and the leopard, jumped up behind him, and with the vulture flying ahead as a guide, they set off on the long journey back to the forest. When the travelers again reached the king's domain, they were all very tired and hungry after a long day. The fox and the leopard and the vulture looked at the camel. Then they looked at one another and smiled hungry smiles. They had brought the camel for the king's dinner. Now it was time for the feast. But the Lion King knew what his courtiers were thinking. he called the camel to him. "Friend Camel," he said, "I have to thank you for saving my life. You are welcome to live at my court as long as you wish. I promise you my protection." This did not please the courtiers a bit. Had they not risked their lives so that he could try camel meat? And now the king wanted to let the camel live? But they could do nothing. After all, the king was the king. So they waited. But the lion's paws were so badly burned that he did not feel like going hunting. But that did not keep him from being very hungry indeed. "Fox, leopard, vulture," he shouted, "don't you see that I am ill and hungry? Go and get me some food." The courtiers had to obey the king. So out they went. But they did not go far. In a safe place, they sat down and discussed what they could do. "I know," said the fox after a while. "We shall make the camel ask to be eaten." And he told the others of his plan. They all agreed that it was good, and back they went to the king. First, the vulture stepped forward, bowing low. "Your Majesty," he said, "we have found no food, but we cannot let your Majesty suffer. I am a poor creature. Eat me." The fox pushed the vulture aside. "I have more meat on me," he said. "Eat me, your Majesty." Now the leopard rushed forward. "I am not much good," he said, "but I could make a meal for the king." The camel listened to all these offers and thought he must do as much. "Majesty," he said, "I am willing to give away my life to save the life of the king. These old friends are more useful to you than I am. Eat me instead." At these words, the fox, the leopard, and the vulture prepared to jump at the camel. This was what they were waiting for. But the lion stopped them. "You are all good and loyal subjects," he said. "My heart is touched by your offers, and I accept them all. I shall eat you in the order in which you offered yourselves." The vulture, the fox, and the leopard were shocked. This did not suit them at all. Away flew the vulture. Away ran the fox and the leopard. And they were never seen in that part of the forest again. The lion laughed to see them go. Then he turned to the camel and said, "You have been truly loyal and good. You shall be my friend as long as we both shall live. Now let us go through the forest and see if we can find a meal for ourselves." The camel was happy and grateful. And the lion thought to himself, "To be a king is good, but to be kind is better." The end. Because of the Olympics that were just on, I was reminded of a true story about a cross-country race in December 2012 in Spain. A Kenyan runner named Abu Mutai was just a few feet from the finish line, but he became confused by the signs and stopped, thinking he had completed the race. A Spanish runner, Ivan Fernandez, was right behind, and realizing what was happening, started shouting at the Kenyan to continue running. But he didn't know Spanish and didn't understand. Realizing what was taking place, Fernandez pushed Mutai to victory. And a journalist then asked Ivan, "Why did you do that?" And Ivan replied, "My dream is that someday we can have a kind of community life where we push and help each other to win." But the journalist said, "Well, why did you let the Kenyan win?" And Ivan replied, "I didn't let him win. He was going to win. He was ahead of me farther than I knew I couldn't catch him. And so I pushed him forward." But the journalist insisted, "But you could have won." And Ivan looked at him and said, "Well, what would be the merit in that? What would be the honor in that medal?" And he said, "What would my mother think?" Right. Yes. Sometimes, like the lion found out, it is good to be king. But sometimes it is better to be kind. See you next week, and let's read another story together. Bye-bye.